The morning sun cast long shadows across the weathered pavement as Sergeant Arthur Mackenzie stepped out of his modest apartment building, his weathered hand gripping the harness of his loyal companion, Patriot. At 80 years old, Arthur carried himself with the dignity of a man who had served his country with honor, though the scars of war had left him forever changed. The explosion in Kandahar 15 years ago had taken his sight, but it had never broken his spirit. His face, lined with the marks of time and experience, bore the quiet strength of someone who had faced darkness and emerged with purpose. Patriot, a magnificent golden Labrador with intelligent amber eyes, stood perfectly still beside him, his muscular frame radiating the calm confidence of a professionally trained guide dog. The leather harness that connected them was more than equipment. It was a lifeline, a bridge between two souls bound by trust and unwavering loyalty. Every morning at precisely 7:30, Arthur and Patriot embarked on their sacred ritual, a journey that had become the cornerstone of Arthur's independence. The routine was more than a simple walk. It was a declaration of defiance against the limitations the world tried to impose upon him. His destination was Murphy's Cafe, a small family-owned establishment 3 blocks away, where the aroma of fresh coffee and warm pastries created a sanctuary of normalcy in his carefully structured world. The path to Murphy's required navigating busy sidewalks, construction zones, and, most challengingly, the notorious intersection of 5th and Main Street, a chaotic crossroads where impatient drivers and distracted pedestrians created a daily gauntlet that tested both Arthur's courage and Patriot's skills. As they walked, Arthur's heightened senses absorbed every detail of the awakening city: the gentle hum of air conditioning units, the distant rumble of delivery trucks, the rhythmic click of high heels on concrete, and the occasional bark of neighborhood dogs created a symphony that guided him through his world. Patriot moved with the fluid grace of a dancer, his paws making soft contact with the pavement as he navigated around obstacles with surgical precision. The dog's training was evident in every movement: the way he paused at curbs, the gentle pressure he applied to the harness to signal direction changes, and the protective stance he adopted when crowds grew thick. Their partnership was a masterpiece of communication, built on years of trust and mutual respect. The bond between Arthur and Patriot extended far beyond the practical aspects of mobility assistance. In the quiet moments of their shared solitude, they were simply two beings who had found solace in each other's company. Patriot seemed to understand Arthur's moods with an almost supernatural intuition, pressing closer when the old soldier's memories grew heavy, or maintaining a respectful distance when Arthur needed space to process his thoughts. The dog's presence had transformed Arthur's world from one of isolation and dependency into a realm of possibility and purpose. Through Patriot's eyes, Arthur had rediscovered the joy of exploration, the thrill of independence, and the profound satisfaction of overcoming obstacles that others deemed insurmountable. Their daily journey to Murphy's Cafe was more than a routine. It was a pilgrimage to normalcy, a celebration of resilience, and a testament to the unbreakable bond between human and animal. Arthur treasured these moments of freedom, when he could move through the world with dignity and purpose, guided by his faithful companion who had become so much more than a service animal. Patriot was his eyes, his guardian, his friend, and his lifeline to a world that continued to challenge and inspire him, despite the darkness that had claimed his vision. The streets of downtown were beginning to pulse with the energy of a new day. Commuters hurried past with purposeful strides, their footsteps creating a rhythmic percussion against the concrete. The distant sound of car horns and squealing brakes served as a constant reminder of the urban jungle that surrounded them. Arthur had learned to read the city's moods through these auditory cues, understanding when traffic was heavy, when pedestrians were rushing, and when patience was wearing thin among the morning commuters. Patriot, meanwhile, processed visual information with the analytical precision of a seasoned professional, his eyes constantly scanning for potential hazards, his body language communicating vital information to his human partner through subtle changes in pace and direction. Today felt different somehow, though Arthur couldn't quite identify the source of his unease. Perhaps it was the way the morning air carried an unusual tension, or the slightly erratic patterns of traffic that seemed more aggressive than usual. Patriot, too, seemed more alert than normal, his ears perked forward as they approached the intersection that had become both their greatest challenge and their daily victory. The crossing at 5th and Main was notorious among locals for its poorly timed signals, aggressive drivers, and uneven pavement that created treacherous conditions for anyone with mobility challenges. For Arthur and Patriot, it represented the ultimate test of their partnership and the most dangerous moment of their daily journey. If you're moved by stories of incredible courage and unbreakable bonds like Arthur and Patriot's, you've found the right place. Here at Lab of Love, we share the most powerful stories of human-animal connections that will touch your heart and restore your faith in the world. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because you won't want to miss the extraordinary tales of love, loyalty, and heroism that we bring to you. These are the stories that remind us of the incredible capacity for goodness that exists in both humans and animals, and we're honored to share them with you. As they approached the intersection, the familiar sounds of morning rush hour intensified. The thunderous roar of diesel engines, the sharp hiss of air brakes, and the constant symphony of car horns created a cacophony that challenged even Arthur's finely tuned auditory navigation system. Patriot's muscles tensed slightly, his professional training engaging as he assessed the complex variables of timing, traffic patterns, and pedestrian flow. The intersection was a study in urban chaos. Delivery trucks double-parked while making hurried stops, taxi drivers weaving through traffic with reckless abandon, and pedestrians jaywalking with complete disregard for safety regulations. The traffic light at 5th and Main had been a source of complaint among residents for years. The timing was notoriously unpredictable, with walk signals that seemed to change duration without warning and traffic patterns that defied logical explanation. City planners had promised improvements, but like many municipal promises, the intersection remained a hazardous obstacle course that tested the patience and reflexes of everyone who attempted to navigate it. For Arthur and Patriot, crossing this intersection required perfect synchronization, absolute trust, and a healthy respect for the unpredictable nature of urban traffic. Arthur stood at the corner, his acute hearing analyzing the ebb and flow of vehicles. The morning sun had climbed higher, casting harsh shadows that created a checkerboard pattern of light and darkness across the asphalt. Patriot remained motionless beside him, his body a study in controlled alertness as he processed the visual information that would determine their crossing strategy. The dog's training had taught him to evaluate multiple variables simultaneously: the speed of approaching vehicles, the behavior of pedestrians, the timing of traffic signals, and the condition of the crosswalk itself. The pedestrian signal finally changed, emitting its familiar electronic chirping that indicated safe passage. Arthur felt Patriot's subtle forward movement, the gentle pressure against the harness that communicated readiness to proceed. Together they stepped off the curb and into the crosswalk, beginning their careful navigation across the wide expanse of asphalt that separated them from their destination. The morning air was thick with exhaust fumes and the metallic scent of hot engines, while the ground beneath their feet radiated the accumulated heat of countless vehicles that had passed over it. Halfway across the intersection, disaster struck with the sudden violence of a lightning bolt. A silver sedan, its driver apparently distracted by a cell phone conversation, made an aggressive right turn without properly checking for pedestrians. The vehicle's engine roared as it accelerated through the turn, its tires squealing against the asphalt as the driver attempted to beat the changing traffic light. The car swept dangerously close to Arthur and Patriot, its side mirror nearly clipping the old soldier's shoulder as it passed. The sudden appearance of the speeding vehicle sent a shockwave of terror through Arthur's carefully ordered world. His military training kicked in, flooding his system with adrenaline as his body prepared for combat that his mind knew was impossible. The unexpected proximity of the car triggered a cascade of traumatic memories: the sound of incoming artillery, the chaos of battle, the moment when his world had gone dark forever. His balance, already compromised by age and the disorientation of his blindness, began to fail as his body reacted to the perceived threat. Patriot felt the change in Arthur's body language immediately, the way his grip on the harness tightened and his gait became unsteady. The dog's training had prepared him for many scenarios, but the combination of Arthur's panic response and the dangerous proximity of traffic created a perfect storm of hazardous conditions. As Arthur's legs began to buckle beneath him, Patriot attempted to provide support, but the physics of the situation worked against them both. Arthur's foot caught on the uneven edge of a poorly maintained section of crosswalk, where years of freeze-thaw cycles had created a treacherous lip of broken concrete. His ankle twisted violently as he tried to regain his balance, sending shooting pains through his leg and completely destroying what remained of his equilibrium. The fall seemed to happen in slow motion, his body tilting forward as gravity took control, his hands reaching out instinctively to break his fall despite the complete absence of visual reference points. The impact with the asphalt was devastating. Arthur's knees struck the pavement first, followed by his hands and then his shoulder, the sequential impacts creating a symphony of pain that radiated through his aging body. The rough surface of the crosswalk scraped away skin and fabric, leaving him bleeding and disoriented in the middle of the intersection. His glasses flew off his face, skittering across the asphalt like a wounded bird, while his carefully maintained composure shattered into 1,000 pieces of vulnerability and fear. Patriot immediately moved to Arthur's side, his training dictating that he provide assistance to his fallen partner. The dog's powerful frame positioned itself as a shield between Arthur and the surrounding traffic, while his intelligent eyes assessed the rapidly deteriorating situation. Arthur lay on the pavement, dazed and struggling to understand what had happened, his body racked with pain and his mind clouded by the trauma of the fall. Blood seeped from the scrapes on his hands and knees, mixing with the grime of the street to create dark stains on his carefully pressed clothing. The traffic light had begun its inexorable countdown to the next phase, and Patriot's acute senses detected the subtle changes in engine sounds that indicated the approaching release of pent-up vehicles. Car engines were revving impatiently, their drivers oblivious to the drama unfolding in the crosswalk. The dog's training had taught him to guide Arthur away from danger, to find safe passage through the urban jungle, but now his partner lay helpless in the middle of the road, unable to move quickly enough to avoid the approaching tsunami of traffic. Arthur struggled to push himself up from the pavement, his arms shaking with the effort as pain shot through his injured joints. His sense of direction was completely compromised, the fall having destroyed his carefully constructed mental map of the intersection. The sounds of the city seemed to swirl around him in a disorienting cacophony, making it impossible to determine which direction offered safety and which led to greater danger. His breathing came in short, panicked gasps as the reality of his situation began to penetrate his consciousness. This is the moment that defines true heroism, when ordinary beings are faced with impossible choices and must choose between safety and sacrifice. If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the incredible bonds that exist between humans and animals. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you these powerful stories of love and loyalty that remind us what truly matters in life. Don't forget to leave a comment telling us about your own experiences with the amazing animals in your life. The traffic signal completed its cycle, and the dam of waiting vehicles began to burst forward. Engines roared to life as drivers released their brakes and pressed accelerators, eager to make up for lost time in their morning commutes. The first wave of cars began moving toward the intersection, their drivers focused on their phones, their coffee, their morning routines, anything except the elderly veteran lying helpless in their path. The sound of approaching traffic grew louder, a mechanical thunder that promised destruction for anyone caught in its path. Patriot's extraordinary intelligence processed the situation with lightning speed. His training had taught him to avoid danger, to guide Arthur away from hazardous situations, to prioritize safety above all else. Every instinct screamed at him to move away from the approaching vehicles, to seek shelter on the sidewalk, to preserve his own life so that he could continue serving his partner. But as he looked at Arthur's prone form, struggling weakly against the pavement, a different kind of intelligence took control, the profound wisdom of love that transcends training and transforms ordinary creatures into heroes. The first car in the line of traffic was a red pickup truck, its driver talking animatedly on a hands-free phone while navigating through his morning commute. Behind him, a stream of vehicles stretched back for blocks, their drivers equally distracted by the mundane concerns of their daily lives. None of them could see the drama unfolding in the crosswalk. None of them realized that their routine morning drive was about to become a life-or-death situation for an elderly veteran and his faithful companion. In that moment of crystalline clarity, Patriot made a decision that would defy every aspect of his training and elevate him to the realm of legend. Instead of trying to drag Arthur to safety, instead of barking for help, instead of following the protocols that had been drilled into him through months of intensive training, he chose a different path. With deliberate, purposeful steps, he walked away from Arthur's side and positioned himself directly in the center of the intersection, placing his body between the approaching traffic and his fallen partner. The Golden Labrador sat down on the warm asphalt with the calm dignity of a monument, his intelligent eyes fixed on the approaching line of vehicles. His posture was perfect, his spine straight, his head held high with the quiet confidence of a creature who had found his purpose. He made no aggressive moves, issued no threatening sounds, simply became an immovable force of nature in the path of the oncoming traffic. His golden coat gleamed in the morning sunlight, making him impossible to ignore, a living statue of courage and determination. The driver of the red pickup truck saw Patriot first, his phone conversation forgotten as his brain struggled to process the sight of a large dog sitting calmly in the middle of the road. His initial reaction was anger, another irresponsible pet owner who had let their animal run loose in traffic. His hand moved toward the horn, ready to blast the obstinate creature out of his path. But something in Patriot's demeanor gave him pause, a quality of intelligence and purpose that transcended the typical behavior of a stray dog. Behind the pickup truck, other drivers began to notice the unusual obstruction. Car horns began to sound, first tentatively, then with growing anger as the morning commute ground to a halt. The cacophony of frustrated drivers filled the air, their impatience creating a harsh symphony of urban irritation. Some drivers began to gesture angrily through their windshields, their morning schedules disrupted by what they perceived as a simple traffic anomaly. But Patriot remained unmoved, his body language radiating a calm determination that began to affect the mood of the entire intersection. The dog's eyes never wavered from the line of vehicles. His posture never faltered, his resolve never weakened. He had become something more than a service animal, more than a pet, more than a trained companion. He had become a guardian, a protector, a living symbol of the love that refuses to yield in the face of overwhelming odds. The driver of the pickup truck finally applied his brakes, bringing his vehicle to a complete stop just a few feet from where Patriot sat. The sudden deceleration sent a ripple effect through the line of traffic, as each driver in turn realized that their forward progress had been permanently halted by the mysterious canine obstruction. The symphony of car horns grew louder, more insistent, as dozens of drivers began to express their frustration with the delay. It was then that the first pedestrian noticed Arthur's prone form in the crosswalk. A woman walking her small terrier stopped in her tracks, her hand flying to her mouth in shock as she realized the true nature of the situation. Her voice cut through the noise of traffic horns and angry engines, a clarion call that changed everything. "There's a man down! Someone's hurt in the crosswalk!" The transformation was immediate and profound. The angry car horns fell silent as drivers and pedestrians alike turned their attention to the drama unfolding before them. The elderly veteran, bleeding and disoriented, struggling to rise from the unforgiving asphalt. The magnificent golden dog, sitting like a sentinel between his fallen partner and the machinery of destruction that had threatened to claim both their lives. The intersection, which moments before had been a battlefield of impatience and anger, became a stage for the most extraordinary display of courage and love. The driver of the red pickup truck was the first to abandon his vehicle, leaving his door open as he rushed toward Arthur's position. His earlier anger had evaporated, replaced by a profound sense of awe at what he was witnessing. Behind him, other drivers began to emerge from their cars, their morning routines forgotten in the face of this unprecedented display of animal heroism. The intersection began to fill with people, all drawn by the magnetic power of Patriot's selfless act. A middle-aged nurse who had been riding the bus to work pushed through the gathering crowd, her professional training taking over as she knelt beside Arthur to assess his injuries. Her gentle hands checked for signs of serious trauma, while her voice provided the kind of calm reassurance that comes from years of experience dealing with medical emergencies. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm a nurse. You're going to be okay. Just lie still while I check you over." Arthur's voice was weak but clear as he responded to the nurse's questions. "Patriot," he whispered, his primary concern not for his own injuries, but for the welfare of his faithful companion. Where is Patriot? Is he safe? The nurse glanced toward the center of the intersection, where the golden Labrador continued his vigil, and her own eyes filled with tears as she began to understand the magnitude of what had just occurred. Traffic in all directions had come to a complete standstill, but instead of angry horns and shouted curses, the intersection was filled with a respectful silence, broken only by the soft conversations of the gathered crowd. People who had been strangers moments before worked together to create a protective barrier around Arthur and Patriot, their shared witness to this extraordinary act of love having transformed them into a temporary community united by wonder and respect. A paramedic team arrived within minutes, their ambulance making its way through the stationary traffic, with the help of dozens of motorists who had abandoned their vehicles to direct traffic and clear a path. The paramedics worked with quiet efficiency, their professional competence evident in every movement as they tended to Arthur's injuries. But even these experienced first responders found themselves pausing to stare at Patriot, who remained motionless in his protective position, his duty clear and his resolve unshakable. Police officers began to arrive, their initial purpose to clear the intersection and restore traffic flow. But as they surveyed the scene, as they listened to the excited testimonies of the witnesses, as they watched the golden dog who had single-handedly stopped traffic through the pure power of his devotion, they too became part of the growing audience of believers. The senior officer, a 20-year veteran of the force who had seen every conceivable type of urban drama, stood with his hands on his hips, shaking his head in amazement. "In all my years on the force," he said to his partner, his voice filled with genuine awe, "I've never seen anything like this. That dog didn't just stop traffic, he orchestrated a rescue operation. Look at him, he's not moving until he's sure his owner is safe." The officer's radio crackled with demands for a traffic report, but he found himself reluctant to reduce this extraordinary moment to the mundane language of incident reports and violation codes. The paramedics worked carefully to stabilize Arthur's injuries, their gentle hands cleaning his wounds and checking for signs of concussion or more serious trauma. Throughout the examination, Arthur's primary concern remained focused on Patriot, his voice growing stronger as he repeatedly asked about his companion's welfare. "He's the best dog in the world," Arthur told the paramedics, his voice thick with emotion. "He saved my life. He actually saved my life." As the paramedics prepared to transport Arthur to the hospital for further evaluation, they faced an unusual challenge. Patriot remained in his protective position, clearly unwilling to abandon his post until he was certain that Arthur was safe. The dog's training had taught him to stay with his partner at all times, and no amount of coaxing could convince him to move from his vigil. It wasn't until Arthur himself called out to his faithful companion that Patriot finally rose from his position and trotted over to the ambulance. The reunion between Arthur and Patriot was a moment of pure emotional intensity that left not a single dry eye among the gathered crowd. The old soldier's hands found his companion's familiar form, his fingers running through the golden fur as he whispered words of gratitude and love. Patriot pressed close to Arthur's side, his tail wagging with the quiet satisfaction of a job well done, his eyes bright with the intelligence that had saved both their lives. The ambulance crew made the unusual decision to allow Patriot to ride with Arthur to the hospital, recognizing that separating the pair would cause more trauma than allowing the dog to accompany his partner. As they loaded Arthur onto the stretcher, Patriot jumped into the ambulance without invitation, taking his customary position at Arthur's side. The paramedics exchanged glances, then made the practical decision to treat the dog as part of the medical team. As the ambulance pulled away from the intersection, the crowd that had gathered began to disperse, but slowly, reluctantly, as if none of them wanted to leave the scene of such an extraordinary event. Conversations continued on sidewalks and in cars as people struggled to process what they had witnessed. Cell phone videos of the incident began to circulate on social media, carrying the story of Patriot's heroism to audiences around the world. The intersection of 5th and Main Street would never be quite the same. The city would eventually install new traffic signals, improve the timing of pedestrian crossings, and repair the broken pavement that had contributed to Arthur's fall. But for everyone who had witnessed Patriot's incredible act of courage, the intersection would forever be remembered as the place where a dog became a hero, where love triumphed over indifference, and where an ordinary morning was transformed into something miraculous. In the days that followed, Arthur's recovery progressed steadily. His physical injuries were relatively minor, scrapes and bruises that would heal with time, but the emotional impact of the experience would stay with him forever. The knowledge that his faithful companion had risked everything to save his life filled him with a gratitude that transcended words. Their daily walks to Murphy's Cafe resumed within a week, but now their journey carried an added dimension of meaning, a deeper appreciation for the bond that connected them. Patriot returned to his duties as a guide dog with his characteristic professionalism, but those who knew him well noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. There was a new confidence in his stride, a deeper sense of purpose in his protective instincts. He had discovered something about himself that day in the intersection, something that elevated his service from mere training to a calling that touched the very essence of his being. The story of Patriot's heroism spread far beyond the immediate community, capturing the imagination of people around the world who were hungry for examples of pure, selfless love. News outlets picked up the story, social media platforms buzzed with videos and commentary, and animal welfare organizations cited the incident as evidence of the extraordinary intelligence and emotional depth of service animals. But for Arthur and Patriot, the attention was secondary to the simple truth that they had emerged from their trial stronger and more connected than ever. This is the power of love in its purest form, the willingness to sacrifice everything for another being, to place their welfare above your own safety, to become something greater than yourself, in service of something larger than your individual existence. Stories like Arthur and Patriot's remind us that heroism isn't just found in the pages of history books or the scenes of action movies. It's present in the everyday moments when ordinary beings choose love over fear, sacrifice over safety, and service over self-preservation. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to Lab of Love for more incredible stories of the bonds that unite humans and animals in ways that challenge our understanding of loyalty, intelligence, and love. Leave a comment below telling us about your own experiences with the amazing animals in your life. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. These stories matter because they remind us of the extraordinary capacity for goodness that exists in our world, and we're honored to share them with you. Thank you for being part of the Lab of Love community, where every story celebrates the incredible connections that make life beautiful.